mic over
Okay,
so they can hear.
I'll pull up the plans on the server.
Folks need to-
so in essence, for the public, this is Lou, a new plan, correct?
Well, not necessarily a new plan, it's a revised plan that adjusted the number of units,
Okay,
and provided access to Lake Street versus a looping road access back out to Prospect Street. And most of at the previous meeting, I had shown the board and the public what the plan conceptually was going to look like.
mhm,
Now you have revised plans with revised stormwater management report, and it's ready for peer review.
mhm,
We also have received peer review from the traffic consultant regarding the proposed access to Lake Street and circulation within the project.
based on what's being presented tonight.
Correct. Quite honestly, as we move through this process, the only things that are remaining as a submittal requirement would be a landscape plan and a lighting plan. So, and some, we'll get to the architectural plans, but those are the 2 or 3 items that are part of your requirements as a submittal to be incorporated into the special permit decision to go along with the plan. Other than that, I mean, the rest of the information that is, you've asked questions about is related to the town providing that information, which we have
Correct.
not received. So, essentially, the road system that's, as I previously mentioned, did not change.
Excuse me, for the audience, also behind you, if you want a bigger screen.
So,
Excuse me.
yeah, well, thank you. So essentially, the road system within the project did not change. The looping of the roadway within the main section of the project did not change. We simply pulled out buildings within that area to reduce the number of units from what it was previously proposed at 156. We took out the calculation for the wetlands as was requested, and we got down to a density of number of units down to 129. We do have the access now that's going out towards, to Lake Street, which I mentioned, the traffic peer reviewer has reviewed. They've provided a report. They've made some recommendations where, I think a lot of those recommendations have been shown on the revised plans. Rob and I will probably have a side session with our traffic consultant and the peer reviewer to go over any other incidental comments that he may have. But essentially, the plan is the same, the sewer is the same, the emergency access at Lakeview Avenue is the same. Quite honestly, there's nothing really that's changed other than the number of units and a formal plan showing the roadway and stormwater out to Lake Street, stormwater management. I don't know if you want to look at the plans in a little bit more detail, but there are just a couple of other issues that are under consideration because we are in front of the Conservation Commission as well.
What page is that?
This is sheet 34. So I'm gonna run the project backwards from Lake Street into the project, which should give you an idea of what's on the plan, on the revised plans. So we have the road going out to Lake Street. We have stormwater management that we've incorporated into the design, which was not on any other previous plans. So that is going to be evaluated by BFC through another session of peer review that we're in the process of getting that started. And then subsequently this is sheet 33, Rob. This takes you into the site from Lake Street to Prospect Street. In orange is the there's 3 other stormwater management basins that are required. This area that's shaded in purple is a compensatory wetland replication that we're proposing with the Conservation Commission for an isolated wetland that's in the site that we've proposed that, well, we've suggested that rather than have an isolated wetland in the middle of virtually a desert, we are proposing a 2-to-1 replication of an area that's along the wetland border on the lowest part of the site, along the intermittent stream that's in that particular area. And that is being reviewed by Concom at the present time. And then lastly, the the site just travels through and it just ends up going through emergency access out to Lakeview Avenue, same as previously proposed. So there really isn't any major change other than the fact that it hasn't been reviewed by your peer reviewer for the revision from the north access to Prospect Street versus the access to Lake Street. That's really the only change in the plan and the number of units. As one of the comments, obviously, that the traffic reviewer had, everyone's had the same comment about the intersection at Lake and Prospect Street. We did do conceptual, and again, I'm gonna preface all of this because it's a complicated situation because you have the town line, you have private ownership of land, and you have an area that is controlled by the town that has always had the ability to make the improvements, but has never done them. So what I show here is the intersection and the property lines. This island, obviously, I think you know, is privately owned. The intersection cuts through a lot of the property owner at 525 Lake Street. This area here is what was previously proposed back in 1935, I believe, to create Lake Street in this particular fashion. Never been built. And I think, quite honestly, it might even be considered a private way. But essentially, the town has within its control right now to clear out this area that's along Lake Street. This is, just so you know, the stone wall is in Bellingham, so there are no scenic road issues with Franklin. The Prospect Street is a scenic road at Franklin. The work that we're suggesting doesn't require any incursion into the town of Franklin. It's basically from the stone wall back, lowering the grade, removing the vegetation. But we can only go so far because then we enter the area that is controlled by the home, it's privately owned. So we're having discussions about that property and how to perhaps move forward with that, but essentially, I think the fire chief asked us to do a turning analysis for what we've proposed, which is widening this turning radius here of the street so large vehicles can make the turn without traveling over the stones corner that are there. But essentially, that's kind of where it would go if all of the pieces fell into place. And like I said, we can only do what the town has the ability to control on its own property. And so those are really the only things that are being discussed at the present time. As I mentioned, there's lighting plan and the landscape plan that will be forthcoming. And then we'll wait for the peer review to do their thing relative to the stormwater management and any other incidental things that are on the plan. But essentially we're kind of at the end of the line.
Okay.
So that 20,000 feet, is that far enough away, 20,000 feet?
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Better than I expected.
Well, if you have any questions, I'm perfectly happy to answer
Yeah,
whatever.
I think I'd like to start with the board, but we still have a lot of peer review to review.
Yeah, so because it's, you know, the revised plans, there's a significant area that's now being proposed as being developed. Yeah, I would highly recommend we send this out to peer review.
Okay.
The other thing too, Lou, just a quick question regarding the traffic study. I know that we had the peer review done there, as you mentioned, there were some outlying suggestions and comments. Is your traffic consultant planning on submitting any type of comment response to those?
I don't have the answer to that question, but if you want one, I think what we did was, we took those comments and we incorporated them into the plan.
Right.
So, but I can ask him to, provide a comment letter.
Because there were some specific modeling questions. I think it was not modeling, but impact modeling essentially. Specific to, I think, one of the intersections on,
For us,
not Cross. It might have been Cross and Lake, and then I think also Maple and Mechanic, but I'd have to double check. But either way, I think it would be helpful, whatever that
I'll have a
is.
look at it, and you can certainly. provide
Yeah, if there's anything open, we want it to be addressed.
Right.
So, okay. That was it. That's all I
Thank you.
had.
Those are the questions right now. I'll probably reserve those for when we get the peer review back. I have nothing to add tonight.
I just had a quick question for the chief. It's just, conceptually, I understand the reasoning to have emergency accesses and things like that. Is there an ability to design, let's say we didn't have the emergency access, but we designed the entry points, the existing entry points to be wider, or to do something with a sidewalk so the trucks can drive over it in case the roadway itself is blocked? Is that ever done?
That's at your level. So in other words, I can't request that, but I would ask. We don't want to be driving over sidewalks. We don't want to be driving over curbs. We just don't want to do that. You blow a tire or something like that going in, we're gonna be in trouble. So the emergency access is, again, if the two main exits are blocked, it gives us another point to get into. That's all that is. That's not gonna be open to the public. It's actually going to be closed with a gate with our key system on it. We're the only ones in the PD that will be able to get through during an emergency.
I was just wondering if there was a design feature we could, that's a lot of extra pavement. And if there was a design feature that we could put at the entrances that are existing. I don't know, just thought that. I'm sure it would have been thought about previously, but I was just curious.
Anything else?
Nope. No worries.
I'd hold up to, you see the traffic consultant and the plan to have the traffic consultant in go over point by point.
I think that's a question that was raised by a couple members, so,
I guess I'd like to see that.
But you
Especially
have
since
the
we don't have the-
report already.
I understand.
No, I don't know if
You
have
just
the
addressed
report already.
concerns.
Okay.
Well, some folks, from town may have some questions.
Oh, absolutely. No, I just want to make sure that
It's
the members, the board members have received the report.
Yep.
Because it has been in play for a good month or so.
well, I think we received that December 5th.
Right,
So
2
it's been a
months.
little while, but, to Phil and Steve's point, that we do typically, for most of these projects that do have, some sort of impact to areas that are troublesome. It is helpful to have a meeting where we discuss really specifically traffic. And I think it would probably be a good idea to do that. I mean, we have the peer reviewer, you have, is it Bill Scully, I think is your traffic consultant? I think it would be helpful, because I know there's been a lot of comments, questions, concerns from the public about traffic. I know the information is available to the public, but it is helpful to at least have it discussed on the record. So I mean, if that's the board's appetite, I think that's fair, and we can work with you to figure out.
Well, we can schedule that at the next meeting, basically. I mean, but opposed to anything like that.
Phil addressed what I was going to. ask.
Okay. Likewise, I'm really concerned about the traffic. I know we've done other projects where we've earmarked one meeting to address a specific issue. But I want to hold off on that before I hear from the public. This is a new proposal. We are getting a peer review. As you know, I requested that Lou give us a 20,000-foot overview of the new proposal. I also want to hear from, at some point, the fire department on the proposed changes on Lake Street and Prospect correction, and everyone that can be done. But now I'd like to hear from the questions you have. I know you've had questions over the past almost year on this. But if you could just, please ask the questions. Please not, try not to repeat the same question. And please try to rotate the questions, the people who are asking the questions. With that in mind, I'm gonna go to the person. Yes, sir, you're first.
John Holman, Silver Lake, Bellingham. Could you clarify for us, Lou, on the plan that's showing now, the black curved line, is that your proposed road or is that just an
No,
artifact? of the
That's,
drawing?
that's the existing layout of the county layout that was done in 1935. The county took the land that was previously owned by our predecessor entitled the Crooks and other people. And that layout is available to the town if they decide to build it.
So for clarification, are you saying you are not proposing to build something there?
We're not proposing to build anything there.
Yeah.
What we're suggesting is that this area that's shaded in pink and goes into green, which is the vegetation that's on the side slope of Prospect Street as you approach Lake from going south. We're suggesting that that vegetation be cleared back and the slope be cut down so that you can have a better visual of the intersection.
I have one more question.
Absolutely, sir.
It's not on the plans you're showing, you submitted recently in January, there are plans for sewer. I've seen some earlier plans for water. What I don't see on those plans, I want to ask you about. Are your engineers and will your proposal include any design for utility crossings, either Full Brook or where the sewer has to pass under the Arcan Bridge, which is on Cross Street as you progress towards the pump station? I haven't seen any details on those, and I think those are extremely sensitive points, both environmentally and for the road structurally, that I would suggest to the town. The town needs to understand what's gonna happen there, so we don't.
And we're waiting for information back from the town.
Well, first of all, if you look at the plans on sheets, the supplemental sheets 1 through 4 on the last pages of the plan set, you'll see the plan and profile of the proposed sewer connection and the details of the crossing underneath the Arcan Bridge. It's on the plans. If nobody's commented on those plans that we know of from the town's perspective, we did hire. The town has a consultant that's supposed to do that, right?
Kleinfelder submitted a comment letter which it requested some additional information.
No, I don't think they reviewed the sewer. They just gave us a report on the pump station itself. And
There's,
I haven't seen any. If you do have something.
it's in that letter, there's additional comments on that regarding the actual, because you had the separate sewer plans, that
Yeah,
plan set.
right, exactly. So
Yeah.
we do need to provide a detail of the pump station that we're going to have on our own property. That's gonna pump the sewage up a force main. Up the railway, which is. So. So we do, this is our sewer force main that's going to go up in that direction. The only thing that's missing at this time that we haven't prepared is the details, the mechanical aspects of the pump station that's going to be inserted in here, that's going to pump all of the sewage out down that sewer line. The other issues related to the crossings and things of that sort, those are in front of the Conservation Commission. So they have a peer reviewer that we've met with and are discussing some things. We're waiting for them to get back to us with a report. They've been kind of busy, so we haven't had the ability to have a meeting with the Conservation Commission lately because they haven't given us a report. But you know, those points that you've raised, those are all things that are being reviewed as they progress through the project.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have any questions?
Pauline Aiello from Lakeview Ave. Can you just clarify where you're gonna put the, access to Lake Street? Is it next to that little brook? Where it
Well,
floods,
it's 200 feet away from that brook.
where it floods?
Which way?
Yeah, what number of the houses?
So just one person at a time.
Is it where it always floods?
We have a mark in the street.
Is that where it is?
It's generally in, after that area.
But how are you going to put a road in if it floods all the time?
Well, I'm not gonna get into the discussion of whether or not it floods all the time or not. All I'm gonna say is that we've engineered it. It's in a spot that meets the requirements for a site distance, and it's far enough away from the perennial stream. And it's in a location that was reviewed by the traffic consultant.
I understand that,
So,
sir. I've lived in that area for over 40 years.
Yeah.
Okay, and I know that we have flooding there at least once a year. And if you put a road in and you can't use it, what good is it?
Well, it all depends on what the elevation of the roadway is versus the elevation of the ground that's there. So if you were to look at that roadway and look at it from an engineering standpoint, you'd find that the roadway has no curbing on it, has no stormwater management in the roadway. In other words, if you were in the north, well, then if you understand that, then the water has no place to go, but it seeks the lowest point. And that lowest point happens to be in this general area. There's, you know, if we were to put curbing there and keep it in the right of way, you'd have it ponding on Lake Street. We're able to do that if you want that, but we're taking that water right now and we're taking it and we're gonna make a provision on the site to keep it there, and as it goes away, goes into the ground, so it's not something
It
that,
doesn't go away immediately, but it does go away.
it goes away.
But, so you won't be able to use the road while it's flooding.
No, you know, the roads are designed at a certain
Mhm.
elevation. That elevation is significantly higher than the ground that's there right now.
Right, okay, but the road itself is low. A Lake Street, you know,
Listen, I'm not proposing that Lake Street be redesigned. We know what the situation is there, and the engineers who I pay are qualified to evaluate that, and that's, you know, they're the professionals that deal with that. But they obviously know what the situation is there, and they've obviously observed it. But it's not really a situation that we're concerned about.
well, we are.
Well, how can you be concerned about it? It's not on your property. I mean, why are you
I'm just
concerned
saying
about
that
it?
It's just something, you know,
Yeah.
all these things that we're talking about this and that and this,
Yeah, but-
we're all concerned about it.
You know, 'cause keep in mind that, you know, a lot of these situations are a result of the town not maintaining its own infrastructure. So when the developer comes in, we hear about all of the issues that have been burdening the neighborhood over all these years that nobody takes care of. Whether it's sewer or water or drainage or things like that occur during major storm events. We end up bearing the brunt of trying to remedy that at our expense, not at the town's expense. So I would suggest that we know what we're doing. the town has reviewers, that engineering, that they know what they're doing. And if they come up with a reason for us not to be able to do it, then we'll sit down and chat about what other situations exist. But for the time being, we think that we've designed a proper roadway at the proper elevation. We're taking care of our own stormwater management that's on the site. And for the time being, we're allowing the town to continue to drain on our property. So
You know.
I don't know how to
understand
answer.
that, but sometimes, this is just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I
Sometimes you
appreciate it.
talk to us like the town is a. you
No,
know,
no, I'm just
and that's
saying that,
not right.
but every town is the same. There are all towns are struggling with municipal projects that can't be funded. Every town is the same. Every town we go in, there are always issues related to a development that are gonna pile onto other problems that may have existed or
Mhm.
continue to exist.
That's true.
It's just a fact of life that we as developers have to deal with,
We
so.
understand that.
Yeah, so we take all of this information and we have these public hearings, we listen to the issues,
But
and then
sometimes
we
it
try to
just-
go correct them.
Sometimes it sounds like you're not maybe as respectful to our town as you should be. My
I'm
opinion.
doing the best I can. I've been at this for a long time here in Bellingham, and so I don't think it's fair.
The picture up there of the development, and can you show us exactly what the exact spot you're talking about? on it?
Me?
Yeah, please, just the exact spot, if you could put, Rob, if you could control of that. Just, we'll put it right on there and talk about exactly what was just mentioned.
I would, if you look at, put sheet 10 up, Rob, if you can,
I'll put up,
or even sheet 33.
I got sheet 33 up.
Yeah.
This
Lake
is that
Street?
stream.
That's Lake Street. This is the stream? Is that the stream?
No, it's the stream.
Okay. That would be right in here, because there's a house right here with, animals, right? So it would be right in this area right there. is
Yeah,
always
exactly,
floods.
yeah.
And the street is low there too, because there's a curve right there.
Yeah, that's the lowest, as I said, that's the lowest
But
part of
if
the.
you raise the road, if you put in a road and you raise it, it's gonna have to like pitch down to the Lake Street. And then, you know,
So is the question, how do you achieve grading from the
Right.
proposed road down to the low point in,
and how will you stop
Lake
that area
Street.
from flooding?
and what prevents your?
We're not attempting to stop it from flooding, it's going on our property, so.
I guess
We're-
that, can I just interject for a moment? I apologize for interrupting you.
That's okay.
You've heard a couple of times that we've mentioned a peer review.
Mhm.
What happens is all these issues are addressed by a peer reviewer who we choose, who they pay. As we go through this process, we will go through that peer review, addressing the concerns you have, addressing traffic, stormwater, and other things. We do it on all the time.
Mhm.
So our peer review will look at that and comment on it. If we can, ideally, you like to see things improved. But that I'm not an engineer.
I'm
We
not
have
either.
engineers that do that. And we're going to look out for your interests as best we can.
Okay, the reason I'm speaking is because I want you to know what my interests are, but thank you for listening.
No, I mean, I have seen it. I saw it last winter. And maybe last winter might have been, it's worse, but I have seen it. It was fixed one day and then back the next day.
Mhm.
And Rob, seeing how I asked her to point that out, if you could make sure that that is a point that comes up when we deal with stormwater with this consultants.
In fairness, Mr. Chairman, the concern that she's expressing is on our property, not on anybody.
I understand.
Okay, so.
I'm well aware of that.
It's our responsibility to deal with that and to provide mitigation to make sure that it doesn't go on anyone else's property.
Sir, before you ask your question, I'm gonna apologize. We have someone from the Conservation Board who may want to.
I Don Coelho, Lake Street. I live pretty much across the street from the area. Mike actually owns the property directly across that flood zone.
Right.
Okay.
So, I haven't had a chance to see anything from the peer review either, so I have no comments to make. We haven't seen it, you haven't seen it. So I don't know, but I can tell you from 30 years of experience there, the flooding that occurs is a combination of water on the street, right, that comes down, and the water from the property. I have video of the stream backing up. This is just years ago, because I was trying to get the town to address it. I didn't know it was privately owned land. And the river comes up, it hits the road, it floods, and then the street water comes in. So it's a combination of both that causes that flooding.
Right, and I don't wanna get too deep into it, because, but if you go back onto the property, there's a pond.
Mhm.
And it used to be dammed. There used to be a dam that went across the
Correct.
pond with a much higher spillway.
It was broken down.
Somebody breached it. And what it does is when you have significant storm events, it free flows down, and that culvert that's underneath Lake Street is not sized appropriately to handle that additional flow. And I've asked our engineers to do some studying about putting that dam back in place and having more of a control structure there that you would control the flow of water during heavy storm events. So the problem is that you cannot change the size of that culvert underneath Lake Street because you don't know how it's gonna affect somebody downstream. So you can't increase the velocity or the volume of water going through that culvert because somebody downstream may get more water than they're entitled to get, or that they've been getting. So it is a combination. And I haven't had a chance to bring that option up to the Concom because we haven't had a peer review report come in I don't know, 2 or 3 months or whatever it is, whatever they're doing. But in any case, the flooding that is occurring there is twofold, as you say. And as I've indicated, it's a low spot in the Lake Street curve that's there. And it is during heavy storm events, that pond, which could hold probably 2 or 3 more feet of volume of water. If that dam was put back into place with a control mechanism that typically Rob could probably tell you better, that could control the flow as you have higher storm events, and that would alleviate the pressure on this culvert. Because right now it's like a river that flows through there. So that's in a nutshell.
I mean,
It's a complicated issue,
but we're getting more information this evening,
yes, well,
which is a good thing.
right.
Gentleman in the gray shirt is standing up.
My name's Frank Morris, I live on Center Street. Could you put back that radius picture of the old,
The layout,
1935?
Yeah.
I sat on the zoning board in this town for many years, and this came up at one time.
1987,
You got it.
I know all about it.
And, there was an issue. Then, I didn't even know this was, we call it a paper street now, but Lee Emmett brought to my attention and that was never ever resolved, never straight. It's available to be fixed. Like he said, it's already been reported as it's recorded easement or deed. This board, you are the powers that be. You can ask him very nicely, you want to do your project? Do that. You want to do your pump station? Upgrade it at his expense. You're in control. And don't be ashamed about that, 'cause that's how the thing works. Everything's an impact. Well, you're the planning board today. Not of 20 years ago, but of today. You have to sit here and look at things and be perspective. What's gonna be happening 10 or 15 or 20 years down the road? The culvert he said you can't expose, bullshit. Yes, you can make it bigger, wider and shorter, and you'll still have the flow without impeding someone downstream. That can all be worked out with calculations. Numbers don't lie, people do, okay? So, you're the powers that be. Please do a good job.
Thank you.
So,
There was a woman over here who was gonna say something about a number of a house, and I might have interrupted you.
Oh, yeah, I did, Bonnie Wheel and Lake Street. I wanted to know, so 2 questions, where this is exactly coming in, but I think these gentlemen answered it. Where it's coming into Lake Street, number 1, and number 2, but it's been a year we've been sitting here listening to this, and for the past 11 months, this was all coming in on Prospect Street. Why the switch now to that it's gonna come on Lake Street? What happened to Prospect Street?
two reasons. One is, we learned that the town has a firing range on that far corner of the property. So
Franklin or Bellingham?
Bellingham.
By the transfer station, man.
Yeah. So Bellingham has a firing range right there. So, and it just so happens that it encroaches on our property for a chunk of land, let's call it. We had our roadway going in that direction. And to avoid confrontational aspects of moving the firing range and other things, one of the reasons we moved it was to accommodate that. The second reason we decided to move it, again, the town has a recycling center that has encroached on our property and has been dumping lots of material there for lots of years. Encroaches on our property by 40 or 50 or maybe 60 feet. Where they, I don't know if you've been in the recycling center where they have those big mulch piles. Well, that's pretty much on our property. That's on the left-hand side where they push the leaves up, that's on our property too. Because I own that strip as well. So for all of those reasons, the path of least resistance and to try and work together with the police department and the town, and also when we started to think about it, who wants to buy a condo overlooking a recycling center? So I was motivated that way too, from a marketability standpoint. So 3 reasons why we switched it to Lake Street, and that's.
And could the 4th reason have been that Franklin wouldn't allow it? Because every time that I came to the meeting, I had all the paperwork from Franklin saying that they wouldn't allow it.
That might have been in our thought, but I'm not so much concerned about the rights of access or anything like that.
But if Franklin says no.
Frankly, well, I don't want to get into the legalities of what authority they have or discretion they have, because that's between the attorneys and the court system or whoever, right? But those were our reasons. Some of them were selfish because we don't want to be selling condos or townhouses overlooking a recycling center. And the others were related to the town activities that we wanted to try and accommodate. And we've, since made proposals to try and work with the town to try and allow the firing range to stay in its place and do some other things and swap some land and other things like that. So
Thank you.
that's really the reason.
Thank you,
reason why we swapped it.
Just also for the address question, across the street from the proposed access, it's either 517 or 519 Lake Street in that
Yeah, well,
area.
that's, he lives there, that's.
Gotcha.
We had it painted on the, I don't know if you saw the white.
It's kind of worn off.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
going away.
Yeah,
It's fine,
that's,
yeah.
that's pretty much where it's coming out. It was an informal measurement that we made, but I can have it staked out if you want.
Any other questions before I wrap it up? I'll have 3 final questions. Gentlemen, the second row with his hand up.
Charles McCarthy, I'm on Lakeview Avenue. Couple questions. That top blue section there that's all in circles, how many units is that all going in there?
Right in here,
Yeah, roughly.
I'd probably say 2/3, maybe 3/4.
How many?
2/3 or 3/4. I don't have. it
How many
counted.
units?
Looking at 123.
I don't know. Come on, there.
Another question on the board, on the Bellingham homepage, you have a floodplain, the US floodplain listed. Where does the US floodplain fall on that? I know he's on both sides of it. And then that US floodplain also goes across Lake Street and it builds up on the bottom.
Yep.
So if this development gets built in between the 2 floodplains, what's that gonna do to all the surrounding areas on everybody's houses that we don't have to pay flood insurance on yet?
You want me to take that
And
one?
at the beginning of all of this was just basically gonna be like 17 units. And now we're at something at this magnitude to where we're having to deal with traffic, different fire department, emergency routes, sizes of everything, water, pollution, and all of that. Can we not just knock it down to go backwards and make it as small as possible so everybody can live together and get something nice out of it rather than having something at this magnitude? I mean, if you got floodplains going around on that on both sides, you can't put anything out on Lake Street without putting in road work that 1935 road that you were gonna put in is unnecessary if you got this road coming out on Maple Street and another one coming on Lake Street. But that one on Lake Street, they can only go right on. So again, it's to that magnitude, it's like you're building in a sand pit in a flood zone, creating problems with septic, water, pollution, traffic, emergency. I just don't understand why we're doing this.
Well,
To this magnitude, why can't we just get back to 23 houses?
Greedy,
Greed.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what, gentleman over here.
Hi, Tom Moreau, 513 Lake Street. Going back to that drawing you had from 1935 with that line, Lake Street. So
I think, Tom, you live down here, right, right
we're
around,
at 513 is where it starts to curve and go up and down the hill.
right,
So, is that proposed just to be clear for visibility purposes, or is there gonna be a change to the intersection of Lake and Prospect?
we're not proposing a change.
Okay.
The only thing that we think is necessary for large emergency vehicles, fire engines, is to increase the turning radius. If you're there now, you can, you can see here where the corner is run over by
Yeah,
trucks.
trucks are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So trucks continuously make that turn and they roll over that corner. So in order to avoid that and to create a normal type of turning that we would, today's standards, that radius should be increased to allow for a larger fire engine or emergency vehicle to make that turn in both directions.
All right, so it's just, but for now, it's just to be able to see around the corner. You
Right,
can't
just
see it
basically
now.
to see around the corner. Well, I mean, there are obviously things that you can do, that you can widen the pavement if you have the land and you have other things, you can make the lanes wider, but my fellow Board of Appeals member had the opportunity to do that back then, and they didn't do it.
Yeah.
And not to go back in history, but I don't know if I've done the title on it, and if you wanna really know the truth, is that this board, planning board, who controls everything, did an A&R plan with all these lots having frontage on this right of way that was never built. So, how you did that, I have no idea, but, these lots originally came this way. This was done by the zoning board as an accommodation for someone to avoid constructing this roadway. So, as I mentioned earlier,
For our time, so.
every town has issues that come up when people have forgotten about things. These things come up, we try to address them as best we can, and that's one of them.
And I got one more, just more addressed towards the town. And it's kind of hypothetical, assuming that this gets built the way that it's proposed right now. And I know I brought this up before, but there are significant safety concerns between Cross Street and Prospect Street on that section of Lake Street, especially in the winter. Adding this many more cars traveling it each time. I mean, it's every year we have multiple wrecks between there. We had a car land in our front yard last week that had to get towed out. Who do we go with it, go to in the town as far as addressing the safety concerns of that road and any possible changes that you guys might need to make to?
This board will consult with the police department, the safety officer, and the crew, just like we do for the fire department. And
Okay.
usually, the police chief is here. We didn't see anything this evening that would warrant him coming here. But we will get him at future meetings to
Okay,
address your concern.
so none of this goes into the traffic study at all. They're not looking at any of the.
Oh, no, they look at it.
We will,
Okay, I haven't read, so I'm just
We
asking
look at that.
if that is.
well, it's premature for me to speak in the traffic study, because I've not seen.
So I will say, though, the traffic peer reviewer agreed with our breakdown of the directions of the traffic. There's only anticipated to be about 15% of the traffic that's gonna go from our project to Lake Street. So I think the consensus is that everybody is gonna use Prospect Street out to 140 and 495. That's the predominant direction for 80 to 85% of the traffic that's generated. So, but we can't control how fast people are going,
I understand,
what they're doing.
but we can assist the neighbors with that. Two last questions.
Dave Nichols, Blackmar Street. Lou mentioned the town's budget constraints. And, so if he brings a street out on the Lake Street, which we all know that that whole area floods, no matter, he keeps mentioning, well, he'll deal with his property. That's all well and good. But we do have budget constraints in town. It's gonna exacerbate the problem on Lake Street. And where's the money from the town? Where's the money gonna come from to fix Lake Street? One other issue is, Lou mentioned rebuilding the dam on that pond up there. Great. Now we'll have Prospect Street flooding again. You know, you can't back the water up. You know, you're gonna have that problem.
Excuse me.
99% of tonight is just rehashing and with a slight difference in the design, rehashing what we've been talking about for several years.
That's why I asked for a 20,000 square foot overview.
But you keep bringing up information that's completely false and erroneous, okay? People don't design stormwater management so that it floods down or upstream, okay? If something is designed properly as the pond that I suggested, it's designed based on, as the gentleman from the zoning board would say, based on calculations. They don't lie. That's how it's designed. We don't take a problem and make it somebody else's problem.
That happens.
And as far as the money goes, we've already demonstrated that this project is gonna generate roughly $1 million to the town revenues, okay? What you do with that money is up to you, up to the town. That's money that this project privately maintained. Homeowners pay for everything. You guys get the tax money. You do whatever you want with it. Okay, don't put that burden,
Doesn't go very far.
don't come to the meeting and put that burden on us.
This isn't the venue for that type of discourse. One last question, gentleman in the front.
Yes, Rita McCarthy, Lakeview Inn. So the entrance and exit onto Lake Street, you proposed that it would just be a right turn only to enter onto Lake Street. How are you going to set that up? Have you?
I haven't proposed anything one way or the other. What I'm basically saying is that the study, the traffic reports and the traffic peer reviewer both agree that a small percentage of the traffic from this development will be going in or down Lake Street using that entrance and exit on Lake Street. Probably between 80 and 85% of that traffic is gonna go exit onto Prospect Street and down to 140 and 495. Those are the professionals. That I'm not a traffic guy, but it only makes sense that most people, I don't know what they're doing if they go right on Lake Street. Where are they going?
Into Bellingham.
Yeah, okay, so
Thank you.
The majority.
Last question for you, the gentleman who started us off.
Some good questions and concerns have been raised, and I think Lou's done a good job of responding to them. If I may, I'd like to, try to remind everybody, the board already knows this, that this is a special permit, not a regular permit. And while we're always are focused on the details of the proposal, the engineering and the impacts, the bigger picture in a special permit is, if I understand correctly, it boils down to a cost benefit analysis. The town has a the board has a responsibility to the town, if I'm not misspeaking, to look at costs and benefits, and only if the benefits are overwhelmingly positive, consider approval. I personally went for variance to the town. I was told by the variance board, that the town's role was to explicitly deny all variances unless they met a very explicit set of circumstances. I'm wondering if the town should adopt the same policy with special permits and say it's a special permit. We should only be approving these if there's a particular set of circumstances and we can tick off the boxes and say, this is a benefit to our town. The benefit is $1 million. The costs are largely uncalculable. As a professional cost estimator, I can provide some costs of these. Couple of things, during construction, you're gonna have a massive amount of trucks for an indeterminate amount of time. The applicant has not responded in any way, shape, or form to how many trucks a day we might be seeing. It's a couple of hundred.
Excuse me, sir, is there a question coming? I know you're.
Question is the board,
I didn't mean to
has the
interrupt you.
board considered an approach of looking at costs and benefits and saying we can only approve a special permit if the benefits are overwhelmingly positive?
I believe we have constrictions on special permits. Rob can address that.
Yeah, okay, so if we're talking about variances, variances are extremely different than special permits, because as you mentioned, I mean, a variance is basically getting an exemption from the zoning bylaws. A special permit is you're requesting an allowed use, however, there are stipulations, as you mentioned, cost benefits, because a lot of times with a special permit, whatever the use may be, it may have more impacts to the community. There may be something really specific that you're looking at, for example, if you're within a floodplain or something. So I mean, so they're not, you can't really compare a special permit the same way as a variance, just because of the way that it's really comes down to Mass General Law and our bylaws. But with that, just to answer your other question of has the town looked at the cost benefit? So Lou, actually, you submitted, I think it was back in November, it was your special permit criteria, how you felt that you.
Well, if you don't mind.
Can I just finish what I'm saying
Go ahead,
really
go ahead.
quickly? So Lou presented, because there's a special permit criteria specific to this special permit. It's a little different. I ended up just submitting, it was because we hadn't seen new plans in a while, and it's on our website, it was really just a response technical memo, just stating some of the findings or, or thoughts that I had towards the application and where the special permit criteria come into play. And it also highlighted a lot of areas that we really hadn't been addressed since the first submission. I haven't received any response to those, but I envision that once the peer review goes through, I intend to just do another review and submit another memo in the same fashion, just to get everything up to date. But to answer your question, these things have definitely been thought about, as we have approached this. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'd just like to wrap it up. I know we've had a lot of questions about stormwater and traffic. We're waiting for a peer review from conservation.
Conservation, yes, and I would like to get the peer review going we already have an ongoing peer review, but this is an amendment to the revised plans.
Okay.
So we're hoping to get that started. We have the proposal, Lou and I talked, so that should be getting going very soon.
Okay.
What I would recommend is, as Lou mentioned, our next meeting is February 27th. I would really like to talk about the traffic. It's a very big discussion point.
Yep.
Our March 15th meeting is going to be busy. So I would think that the February 27th one would be ideal to get this rolling, and then, we can reconvene after or during that meeting. We'll have a better idea of where the peer review is, because I'm gonna have to get a definitive time frame on when we're going to see that.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, and I may say, when you brought up the Concom, and we expect we had to continue our meeting with the Conservation Commission till the 26th. Because the peer reviewer hadn't submitted his report. But we've been assured. Don, we've been assured that we're gonna have a peer review report by the 19th.
Okay,
So that we will be able to have our meeting with the Concom and have a report relative to the issues that are related to this, to the wetland.
Okay.
Aspect of it, so, but I would appreciate the opportunity to have a discussion with the traffic, since that seems to be a major concern. And I think we could get both the traffic people here and discuss it, or however you folks want to do it.
that sounds reasonable. However, before I make that decision, I want to let the public know, you've heard about peer reviews a couple times. The Conservation Commission and this meeting. Those meetings are public. And we discuss the peer review in detail. We don't go line by line. We talk in generalities of, what we've discussed. I would highly recommend you take the advantage of attending some of those meetings if you have questions. I think the next thing is, I would entertain a motion
Yeah,
on a continuance for the next meeting to specifically designate it towards traffic.
Yep, so I would I'd recommend a continuance to February 27th. We're good with the decision deadline, so February 27th.
Do I have a second?
Second, Nick.
I have a motion on the floor that has been seconded. Any more discussion? Just to let you know. We will be discussing traffic only at our next meeting. I will call for the vote.
Nick, aye.
Right,
Bill on,
Eli.
that motion passes unanimously.
Can I ask one question? So you said that we should come to the peer review when the peer.
You should come to the conservation meeting.
Okay, so the peer review will be discussed at the conservation?
They have separate one. They
Yeah,
have
it's
separate-
last night, yeah.
Ma'am, I don't know, but this project is discussed at various conservation meetings. So just look at the agenda online.
Okay, and it'll, okay,
And-
perfect,
yeah.
thank you.
Can you attend these meetings as we do?
Bill, I got the same impression from your statement that perhaps you folks were having separate
Yeah.
peer review meetings outside of Wednesdays and Thursdays.
No, sir.
Oh, that was
That's not correct.
All public hearing.
That was my
They're
misunderstanding.
all public,
Okay.
Thank you.
all right? And then, we pride ourselves on being transparent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. And feel free to reach out to the office if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Ma'am, thank you very much. I apologize for interrupting you earlier.
I thought it was you, that's right. Well, I'm always looking for other jobs.
Thank you, Lou.
No, but it's.
Ladies and gentlemen, we need to continue our meeting. So if you could take this outside, please, and thank you very much for coming.
Whoa.
Well, we have some more items to discuss.
Lou, can you go out so we can finish the meeting? Thank you. You're welcome. My bedtime.
Thank you.
Ma'am, thank you very much for your questions. And please, I don't think I have to say this, don't be a stranger.
Be back.
Thank you very much.
I'll try to
Count
be
on
late.
Bring us up to speed on, we call it 0 Maple Street, map 27, parcels 3 and 3A. You have some
Sure.
decisions in front of us.
I do. So, and I know Shane, he's on Zoom. There was another conflict. So welcome, Shane. How are you?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for being patient.
Yeah.
My
So,
pleasure.
so I drafted 3 decisions. There's the development plan approval and stormwater management permit, scenic road permit decision, and the flexible parking special permit decision. So what I can do, I'll just quickly go through just the items that are specific to this application. I'll go, the larger application or the decision is the development plan approval. So item, if you go to, it starts on page 6 of 10, that's C, which is the decision itself, which has the conditions. So condition 2 is just regarding, basically that the building is built per the architectural plans and that it meets those facade finishes, and there's the office type style with window locations along the facade and similar location and quantity. So just to reference the architectural plans. 4 is something that was brought up by, I think it was Phil. The outdoor storage of fleet vehicles, equipment and or materials is prohibited.
A check mark and a thumbs up on that one.
Ah, Phil,
Thank you.
means the world.
2 stars.
Thank you. The 6 is a general one. That's in all of our decisions, but it's just saying that, if the tenant isn't consistent with the anticipated light industrial operations, that they just need to notify the building commissioner, so then they can basically Tim is the one that makes the determination if it meets the permit criteria and if it would require another permit or if it's already included in allowed uses. So that's 6. 7, it just specifically states that bulk storage isn't permitted through this. 8 is something that came through the peer review that was just regarding the retaining wall designs and subdrain designs. So that one is just prior to construction, the applicant needs to provide those details, and those will be prepared by a structural engineer because they're over 4 feet height. So that's 8. 9 is just regarding to prior to construction, we're gonna want to cut and fill volume analysis just to make sure that they don't need a earth removal special permit. 10 is another condition that was brought up through the peer review. And that was just prior to backfilling the proposed underground system. Applicant shall contact myself to inspect bottom of excavation for soil characteristics and groundwater modeling. Make sure that Rawls rate's correct.
So throw that in.
That's
Sorry,
where I was
Phil.
going.
Sorry, had to.
Now, you mentioned that obviously you're well qualified, but say, for example, this goes 15 years, you win the lottery. Would the town does the town have multiple people that could do this?
Yeah.
I know you're the expert, but still.
I mean, I could change contact, just contact the town to, because I'm a licensed soil evaluator and so is Dylan with the Board of Health.
Okay, so.
Then we have another person on contract essentially.
Yeah, it'll be on his list of things to do before he exits the town after winning.
Yeah, no, but just, I know you're lucky and win the lottery and that type of thing. And, that's an expertise you have. I'm just questioning.
No, I
What would
appreciate it.
happen if, God forbid, you won the lottery and you come back just to have fun with us, but.
What do you mean? I work for the town of Bellingham. I've already won the lottery.
That's right. Does that need to be cheap? Like,
I can.
what do you think?
It would just be such, shall contact, what I would say,
Town planner appropriate.
just contact the planning department. Because we can, that way the onus isn't on the planner to do the inspection. It's just the planning department will coordinate to make sure that they're.
It's just the point of contact. It doesn't mean this decision isn't binding on the town planner, so it's just, that's the point of contact. When this happens, they contact you.
Are you trying to say I don't matter?
Well, that's a whole separate conversation.
We just had you winning the lottery. Chief, thank you.
Good night, everybody. If
Good
you
night.
need me how to get a hold of me.
Take it easy.
Talk to you
Chief.
guys.
I don't think it needs to be changed. It's just a point of contact. You go to initiate those inspections. It's not
Yeah, there's
tasking.
multiple people that can do.
Yeah, we've got it covered, so
Okay.
it'll be good.
That was my only question, multiple people.
So that's easy enough. 12 is specific to the scenic road permit, which is just, this is something that I added in a previous scenic road permit, where basically prior to construction, so when we have the pre-construction meeting, the erosion control will go in, but also the front, along the site frontage where the limit of grading is, that will get staked out to demarcate where the limit of clearing will be prior to the trees being cleared, so in that way stands of trees along Maple Street can remain as much as humanly possible. So, so that's number 12, and that's also, we'll get to the scenic road permit momentarily, but those are the specific ones. There's also, I mean, there's plenty of stuff in here regarding the stormwater O&M plan, and it's referenced to the most updated one. There's items in here just about the exterior lighting. Shane did prepare a photometrics plan, which met all the criteria. It just specifically states that the lighting is dark sky compliant. If anybody doesn't know what that is, it just means that there's no illumination that goes up. And then there's also snow and ice removal in here, phosphorus-based fertilizers are in here. An item that is brought up with most of the industrial sites is number 23, which is just prior to the CO, any hazardous materials that are going to be in there, and there needs to be a list provided to the building inspector so he can handle as necessary. And then everything else is really cookie cutter. There's as-built information, easement information. There's no easements for this. So that's pretty much it for the development plan approval. 31 items, so I mean, it's in depth, but those are the specific items. Want me to just put the scenic road and flexible parking is really quick. I can just go through those, and then if anybody has any questions or comments, I can just start jotting things down and making edits as needed. But for the scenic road permit, the only specific conditions on there to this project, 2 is just regarding any future removal of trees or stone walls. There's no stone walls along the frontage of this, but that's just kind of a general condition stating that if there is, like, you need permission from the planning department prior to doing that. 3 is the exact carbon copy of what was in our development plan approval regarding the limit of work along the frontage being staked prior to construction. And then 4 is just stating that this development plan approval, as well as the flexible parking special permit decision, are still valid, including this. So all of these decisions reference each decision. So, so that's the scenic road, and then the flexible parking special permit. That's just because with this use, I think for most industrial users, this flexible parking special permit comes into play just because there is a requirement for a significant amount of spaces. For this use with the 30 spaces that are required, the applicant's proposing 28, which seems in line with, I know they provided narratives with, how this would work. And also we're prohibiting outdoor fleet storage, which is also very helpful for this. And there's no outdoor storage areas that would take up parking spaces as well. So that's where this flexible parking special permit comes into play. And this one's just very straightforward. So that's what I have. Hopefully that was in depth.
I'd like to entertain 3 motions. The first one would be to approve the flexible parking special permit for Maple Street, map 37, parcels 3 and 3A.
Any
So,
comments?
yeah, you want to do comments first?
Well, we have to have a second, so we need to have discussion, I believe.
Well, so if we discuss it and decide to amend it, then we'd have to amend the motion.
Well, I'll leave it to the wordsmith to.
All right, so.
Yeah, I
make
wouldn't
any
make,
amendments.
yeah, I wouldn't make the motion yet. I would,
Okay.
whatever your amendments are, let me know if there's any, and then I would make the motion. If you're in favor of approving this, make the motion to approve with said amendments. I'm in
Anybody
agreement.
else?
I have a couple of questions, but I don't know, do you want to start with Nick?
We usually start with you.
It looked like you had something to say.
I have a couple of questions. So for 6,
Which one?
I'm sorry, the, development plan approval, stormwater management. One. Page 6. Paragraph 6.
Page 6. Yes,
That was the one you were talking about.
yeah,
So, as I read that, it's, I get the intent, but it almost. If the applicant determines that the new tenant is perhaps a different use that's allowed, then they have to. Contact the building inspector to verify that.
correct.
So is it better to say that? If there's a change in tenant, they shall notify the building inspector and he'll make the determination if that's a change.
I think that that's fair.
So what I would suggest is. Second line where it says the applicant,
Yeah,
start there, capital T. The applicant shall notify the building commissioner of, a new tenant or something like that. And the building commissioner shall determine if the intended use, blah, 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 something to that effect.
if that, everybody okay with that?
You fine with it?
Okay.
So for 5, and I know that so 5 above 6. I know that appears on many of our decisions, so just ask for clarification. Are we? Landscaping is on the plan.
Correct.
But there are trees and things that aren't being disturbed now. That are not necessarily landscaping per se, but we wouldn't really want to see them go either. Is that captured in that, or what do you think?
That's a good question, because typically with the landscaping, it would be towards the landscape plan because it's proposed.
Yeah.
Where I think that, so existing vegetation on the scenic road, that is where condition 2 of the scenic road would come into play, where it captures if the stand of trees that remain, if they decide to cut them down, you know, it needs to be reviewed and approved by the planning department because it's a scenic road. So for, where are we? So 5, I would say applies to proposed landscaping for the landscape plan. Your question about other trees to remain, especially along the frontage for screening.
And
That-
but the 495 side and all that.
So are you saying what happens if a tree falls down on 495? And you can see it now?
I think you're saying if somebody cuts down.
I know
trees
what,
along
yeah, they build it,
495.
construct it according to plan, the next day say, you know what? We're gonna we built it the right way, it's signed off, and then a week later they clear more.
Yeah, and I think, Shane, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, the intent here along 495, basically, there's gonna be a cut along some of that exposed ledge, and then anything on top, because there are trees, the intent is just to not touch that. I mean, it's kind of inaccessible anyway, correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
Can
so,
I share my screen quickly, Rob?
oh yeah, sorry, hold on one sec. Let me,
I can just give everyone a view of springtime look.
I just made you the co-host.
Okay. So this is as we're driving by the site, the building is probably, you can see the clearing right here. So per our previous renderings, right there, that's the rendering, but this is a little bit more of the reality of how thick that tree cover is there. So there's no intent to take any of these trees down whatsoever, so. And I believe a lot of them are off our property anyways, they're within the right of way of the highway.
So can we just memorialize that?
Yeah, so for that, what I can do it would be specifically in the development plan approval, because I don't want to reference it in the scenic road permit, because 495 is not a scenic road. I know, shocking. But what I can do, so it'd be for number 12, limit of work line will be staked along the frontage of the scenic road. I can also add something at the end of that, you know, trees along, that would be the northerly property line along 495 to remain outside of the limit of grading. Yeah.
They can't be disturbed.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that, that would.
Yeah.
All right. We had last meeting discussed a possibility of a condition, and I don't think it's controversial, it's just no outdoor activities. I know that this building doesn't necessarily lend itself to something that there would be a repair shop or something going on.
I'm 99% sure I added a condition in here about the, it was about making sure that the garage doors are closed. You know, if there's work inside the building, doors.
That all work stays inside.
Correct.
We don't want it. So if that's in here, then great, but I didn't see it.
I may have missed it, so what I can do for that, I can either add a new condition under 4, so make it the new 5, or add it to condition 4 where it's regarding the outdoor storage of stuff, and then just add work to be conducted inside the building with doors closed.
Perfect. Wherever you want, wherever it's easy. And then, similar to that, and again, it's not permitted, I don't think it's not permitted in this zone, but just to make it clear, no retail sales, like a plumber can't sell pipes, you know, to the general public, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we talked about the retail sales, which I can add that. I think my intent was to have number 6 kind of encapsulate that, but then again, I don't know, I think some retail uses may be allowed in the industrial zone, so just to cover it.
Yeah, just to cover it, because it could be incidental to the trade in that building, you know, if you go to for example, it's not a good example, but if you go to a lawnmower repair place, they sell oil and blades and things like that.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay.
And then we talked about some sort of limitation on signage.
Along 495. I did not capture that.
So if you wanna think about that.
So for that, I can add, so I think there might be something in here, there usually is, specific to signage, making sure that it meets the criteria of our bylaw. I might not be in here. And Brian, you're really keeping me on my toes tonight. What I'll do is I will add the general condition that signage is to be in compliance with that section of the zoning bylaw as a new condition. The other item 2, just not having any signage visible from 495 is really.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's even allowed, and.
I don't think that it is, because, like, for example, like the D&D mulch signs and stuff, that's in Franklin, not even in Bellingham. I think that's why they're quite large.
Yeah.
So I can definitely craft a condition, though. I don't think it would be an issue, especially where the trees are gonna be right there.
Right,
too.
so nothing, maybe nothing above the building, you know, like.
Yeah, you can't have signs above the building anyway.
When they constructed that new stop, not new, but that Stop and Shop that used to be the old exit 19, I think. They put that big sign there. And, it was Joe Antonellis, and he's,
In South Bellingham?
not so,
No, no,
on 495 North, exit 19,
Milford.
Milford,
Oh, okay.
the Stop and Shop. Not so new, I guess, anymore, but
Yeah.
they put that massive sign, which is really a billboard,
Yeah,
but Joe got it through, calling it a sign.
but in Milford.
But yes,
Okay,
I don't want that to happen here.
okay.
Yeah.
All right,
So whatever you think is appropriate for that.
I will do that.
And then, last but not least, I remember some disconnect between, the screening that we discussed in the meeting and then what the screening on the plan was, and there was an intention to add trees or to beef up things like that. We need to do anything about that.
So if I recall, and Shane, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but at the last meeting, the rendering had evergreen trees along the frontage and no retained vegetation along Maple Street. What's proposed, I believe it's, what is it, 10 red maple, Shane?
Correct.
Or dogwoods? I forget what
Yeah,
it's. a hardwood tree.
dogwoods, yeah.
Okay, so it's a hardwood tree, not evergreen, but the whole intent is to keep, because I prefer to see hardwood trees. I think they look nicer. I understand that when it comes to screening, your evergreens are gonna be better, but I think on Maple Street, it might be better to have the hardwoods and then keep, because it's really just pines that are remaining like along Maple Street. So if we can keep those evergreens and then do the hardwoods behind, it'll just, I think, work better. So I think you're correct, there was disconnect. I think that the landscape plan was a far superior design compared to what those renderings show, because it was just a stand of, like evergreen arborvitaes or spruces.
They were smaller.
Yeah, this is the, sorry to interrupt, this is the rendering. So
Yeah.
it shows some small evergreens and some shrubs. This is the landscaping plan, it's a lot beefier. You're not even going to really see this landscaping during spring and summer seasons, you can tell. So a lot of little maples, young growth maples out there on either side right now. There is some scrub brush that'll have to be cleared out, some deadwood, but these are some young trees that'll be maintained, so.
As long as we're, getting what we talked about.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay, that's all I have.
Yeah, that was the main purpose of keeping the limited grading line staked out to really try and keep as much of the trees along Maple Street as possible, rather than just having it all cut from Maple Street. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem, thank you.
Nick, anything else? You've addressed my concerns and more.
Thank you. I'm all set.
Good. Excellent.
So now we're to entertain a motion to approve the Maple Street map 37 parcel 3 and 3A. Development plan approval and stormwater management permit decision.
As amended.
What?
As amended.
As amended.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor, approved and seconded. Call for the vote.
Nick, aye.
Brian, aye.
Bill, aye.
Go ahead. Eli.
That motion passes unanimously. Let's talk about the flexible parking. Brian, do you have any questions about flexible
I
parking?
do not.
You do not?
I don't.
Okay.
Nothing to add.
I'm good.
Ryan's good, I'm good.
Thank you. I'm in agreement. I would entertain a motion to approve the Maple Street map 37 parcels 3 and 3A flexible parking special permit decision.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Nick, aye.
Brian,
Bill, aye.
Bill, I.
Steve, aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Last but not least, Maple Street, map 37, parcel 3 and 3A, scenic road permit decision. Do you have any questions?
I do. I have one question. Rob, did we change anything on this?
No, that one is, no. Nope.
No question.
Call for the vote.
Well, I'll move to approve it.
Okay. I need a second.
Second.
Call for the vote.
Nick, I.
Brian,
Bill, aye.
Bill, I.
Steve, aye.
That motion passes unanimously.
Excellent.
So that is everything on that issue.
That is, so Shane, just so you're aware, I've got the signature pages for everybody to sign. We'll get that recorded with the town clerk tomorrow, and then as soon as the appeal period is up, which I think is 20 days, we'll send that over to you electronically with this certification from the town clerk, and then we'll also send the paper copy for you to record. We'll send it to the applicant unless you want it specifically, but that's pretty much it.
And then just to let you know, the rest of the development plan is based on changes we agreed to this evening.
So you're good, all right?
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Best of luck.
Thanks, Shane.
Congratulations.
Take care.
Take it easy.
You as well.
So what's the Sunday document?
Yeah, we can do that at the end.
Okay.
The one other thing too, just under general business,
Yeah.
that Harmony bond reduction, still working on that.
Okay,
Sorry to have it as another placeholder. We'll get there eventually. I
Okay.
promise. So,
have we all had a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting? Do I have a second?
Second, Nick.
A motion on the floor made and seconded to approve the minutes as written for the Thursday, January 23rd, 2025 meeting of the Bellingham Planning.
Nick, I.
Brian,
Go on.
Steve, aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Excellent.
Nice.
move to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion on adjournment?
I want to.
Nick, I.
Call for the vote.
Nick, I.
Brian,
Bill on.
Bill, I.
Steve, aye.
Motion
All right.
passes unanimously.
Thanks. Good night, everybody.